I showed up at the gathering without warning. Carol was there, her laugh booming like it did when we first got together. Tonight, though, was distinct. I noticed her approaching Tom too closely and brushing his arm with her hand. It was intimate as well as friendly. My stomach dropped. They shared a strong acquaintance with one another. I felt a mix of anger and betrayal that I'd never known before. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Carol!" I called out, my voice louder than I intended. She looked up, her face going pale as she realized what was happening. Tom's expression shifted from surprise to something harder, almost defiant. The room seemed to hold its breath. I could see the guilt in Carol's eyes as she stammered, trying to come up with some excuse. I wasn't interested in her explanations. My heart was pounding, my mind racing. I knew then that this was more than just a slip. The end. It was betrayal, raw and unfiltered. I turned on my heel and walked out, the slam of the door echoing in my ears. The drive home was a blur of anger and disbelief. I felt a cold resolve settle in me. Carol had crossed a line, and she would pay for it. Back home, the weight of what I'd seen hit me hard. I paced around, my mind a storm of thoughts. The hurt was sharp, almost physical. I felt betrayed, not just by Carol, but by the life we'd built together. The next morning, Carol came home with an apologetic look. She tried to explain, but her words were hollow. I could see right through her. The trust we'd had was shattered. I didn't want to listen to excuses. My thoughts were consumed by anger and betrayal. I couldn't stay in the house. I needed space to think, so I took a drive. The roads blurred as I drove aimlessly. The realization that Carol had been unfaithful was more than I could bear. My mind raced with thoughts of how I would confront her, what steps I would take. I decided then that this wasn't just about confronting her. It was about making her understand the gravity of her actions. Justice would provide the vent for the pain I was feeling. I used the drive to make sure my plan was sound. There was no doubt in my mind that Carol's treason would not go unpunished. I gradually began my research, acquiring information and piecing together Carol's actions. I checked the numbers and names in her phone records. Each call, each message was a thread in the tapestry of her betrayal. It didn't take long to uncover the extent of her infidelity. Carol had been seeing Tom for months. There were dates, locations, and even intimate details that painted a clear picture of their affair. The more I dug, the more I found. Her calendar was filled with hidden meetings and unexplained absences. The revelation that she was also involved with Richard, a businessman I barely knew, was a jolt. It seemed their affair was part of a bigger scheme. Richard's name kept coming up in conversations and messages. His association with Tom made sense now. They were both entwined in something much larger than I had initially thought. The more I learned, the clearer it became. Carol's naivety had led her into a dangerous web of deceit. The betrayal was deeper than I had imagined. Each discovery added to my resolve. I wasn't just going to confront Carol. I was going to unravel the whole mess she had created. Carol's coworker, Linda, had always seemed too friendly, and her behavior recently caught my attention. I noticed Linda and Carol exchanging hushed words, their conversations laced with secrecy. Intrigued, I decided to follow Linda one day after work. Linda went to a cozy cafe on the edge of town. I watched from a distance as she met with Carol. Their discussion was intense, and I could see the tension in their body language. It became clear that Linda was helping Carol cover up her affair. Their whispers and conspiratorial glances revealed that Linda was deeply involved in the deception. Linda had her own secrets. She was hiding from a scandal of her own, a scandal that involved financial troubles and shady dealings. Her involvement with Carol was not just about friendship. It was about mutual benefit and cover-ups. Linda had been using her position to manipulate situations to her advantage, and her connection to Carol was part of that scheme. The more I learned about Linda, the more the web of deceit unraveled. Carol wasn't acting alone. She had a network of enablers and accomplices. Linda's role in the affair was significant, and her own hidden agenda made the situation even more complicated. This revelation added another layer to the intricate puzzle I was determined to solve. As I delved deeper, I began to notice changes in our children, Emma and Mike. Their behavior was different, quiet, withdrawn. Emma seemed more anxious, often crying when she thought no one was watching. One evening, I overheard her talking to Mike about the toll Carol's actions were taking on them. Emma finally confided that she had seen Carol with Tom on multiple occasions. She described their meetings with a detail that was both heartbreaking and incriminating. Emma had been burdened with this secret, trying to shield me from the pain while grappling with her own. Mike, too, was hiding something. He had been helping Carol cover up her lies. He'd been complicit, partly out of fear and partly out of misplaced loyalty to his mother. The guilt weighed heavily on him, and it affected his mood and behavior. Understanding their involvement was painful. It added another layer of complexity to the situation. My children were caught in the crossfire of Carol's betrayal, and their secrets made the emotional stakes even higher. I felt a mix of anger and sorrow, knowing that they were also victims of the situation. They needed support and understanding, even as I dealt with the wreckage of my marriage. As I dug deeper into the tangled web of deceit, I uncovered more about Tom's involvement. Tom wasn't just a lover. He was part of a larger scheme. He was connected to Richard, my wife's other affair partner, through a series of shady deals. I started putting together the pieces. Tom and Richard were both involved in illegal activities, using their positions to gain power and wealth. Tom's relationship with Carol wasn't just a personal affair, it was a strategic move. By getting close to Carol, Tom gained leverage over Richard, manipulating him for personal gain. The more I learned, the clearer it became that Carol's infidelity was just the tip of the iceberg. Tom and Richard's operations were more extensive and dangerous. The affair was part of a broader plan to control and exploit others. Carol was a pawn in their game, used to advance their own agendas. This revelation shook me to the core. The betrayal was no longer just a personal affront. It was part of a larger, more sinister plot. The weight of this discovery fueled my resolve. If I was going to confront Carol, it had to be with the full understanding of the larger scheme she was entangled in. With all the pieces of the puzzle in place, I knew I had to act. My initial anger was now focused on a precise plan for revenge. My goal was to expose the truth about Tom and Richard and make sure Carol faced the consequences of her betrayal. First, I gathered all the evidence I had collected. This included phone records, incriminating messages, and documents detailing Tom and Richard's illegal activities. I made sure I had everything in order, knowing that this was a delicate operation. Next, I reached out to a trusted contact in the local press. I needed someone who could get the story out without getting too entangled in the mess. I provided them with the evidence and explained the full scope of the corruption and deceit involving Tom and Richard. The goal was to make sure the public was aware of the scandal and the criminal activities they were involved in. I also planned to confront Carol in a way that would make her fully understand the consequences of her actions. I intended to make sure she knew how her betrayal had not only hurt me, but it also contributed to a larger, more dangerous web of deceit. As I executed the plan, I kept a close eye on the unfolding situation. The objective was clear: expose Tom and Richard, bring their corrupt activities to light, and ensure Carol faced the fallout of her choices. It was a complex and risky endeavor, but I was determined to see it through. The day came when the story about Tom and Richard's illegal dealings hit the local paper. The headlines were explosive. The public was shocked. The articles detailed the corruption, the financial scams, and the shady connections between Tom, Richard, and various other figures. Carol's reaction was immediate and dramatic. She was blindsided by the scale of the scandal and the impact it had on her life. Her world, already rocked by the revelation of her infidelity, was now shattered by the public disgrace of her lovers. As the news broke, I watched from the sidelines. The fallout was swift. Tom and Richard faced intense scrutiny and legal troubles. Their reputations were ruined. Carol, caught in the crossfire, faced social and professional backlash, now that she was in the open about her innocent involvement in their plots. It was clear that Carol was emotionally spent. She found it difficult to remain calm in the face of inquiries from friends and co-workers who had previously put their trust in her. She was obviously humiliated by everything. Although I had expected this response, it was satisfying and tragic to watch it happen. I made sure to keep my distance, allowing Carol to experience the full impact of her choices. The revenge was complete, but it came with a price. The web of deceit had been exposed, and the consequences were severe. It was a bitter victory, but it was the one I had set out to achieve. As the dust settled from the scandal, more secrets began to surface. Linda's involvement was fully revealed. She had been blackmailing Tom and Richard for years, leveraging her knowledge of their illegal activities to extort money and favors from them. Her facade of innocence crumbled, and she was exposed as another player in the tangled web. Emma and Mike's secrets were also brought to light. Emma's emotional struggles were more profound than I had realized. She had been secretly documenting Carol's infidelities and the ensuing chaos, trying to make sense of her broken family. Mike, too, was not as innocent as he seemed. His complicity in covering up Carol's actions was driven by his own fears and misunderstandings rather than malicious intent. The intricate connections between the characters became clearer. Linda's blackmail had been a significant part of the scheme, manipulating the situation to her benefit. Carol's naivety was evident, but she had been a pawn in a larger game orchestrated by Tom and Richard. The intertwining secrets revealed the full extent of the deceit. Each character had their own motivations and hidden agendas. The realization of how deeply everyone was entangled added layers of complexity to the situation. The scandal was not just about Carol's betrayal, but about the broader network of lies and manipulation that had affected everyone involved. As I pieced together these revelations, I understood that the fallout from this entire saga was far-reaching. The impact on our family and everyone connected to it was profound, and the consequences of these revelations would be felt for a long time. The scandal's fallout left a trail of devastation. Carol and I went through the motions of our final separation. The legal proceedings were swift, and the division of assets was just a formality compared to the emotional wreckage. Carol faced public scorn and professional ruin. Her career, once promising, was in tatters. The shame and regret were evident in her eyes, though they were accompanied by a hardened resolve. She was left to rebuild her life from the ground up, a task that seemed insurmountable given the circumstances. Tom and Richard faced legal consequences. Their criminal activities came under intense scrutiny, leading to investigations and potential prison time. Their fall from grace was as dramatic as their rise had been, serving as a stark reminder of the costs of their corruption. Linda's downfall was equally harsh. The exposure of her blackmail schemes led to a loss of credibility and trust. She faced legal repercussions and social ostracism, her manipulative actions finally catching up with her. For Emma and Mike, the situation was a mix of relief and lingering pain. They were relieved that the truth was out, but the scars of the betrayal ran deep. We worked together to heal and rebuild our family. Open communication and counseling helped us navigate the emotional fallout. I focused on moving forward. I worked on repairing the trust that had been broken, not just with Emma and Mike, but with myself. The revenge had been bitter, but it was necessary. It had restored a sense of justice, but the true victory lay in finding peace and rebuilding a new life. Though the tale of treachery had come to an end, its after-effects served as a continual reminder of what lies ahead. I learned from the experience that although seeking retribution could provide a feeling of closure, the real routes to recovery were finding healing and moving on.